You've been taught that freedom means choice, that you are free because you can think, decide, and believe for yourself. But what if that idea of freedom is already part of the trap? What if the thoughts passing through your mind, the emotions rising in your chest, and even the desires pulling you forward were never truly yours to begin with? For ages, mystics warned that ignorance is not just a lack of knowledge, but a force, an energy that keeps humanity asleep inside a carefully maintained dream. They spoke of the Archons, not as physical beings, but as ancient symbols of illusion and perceptual control, subtle architects of deception who weave invisible webs through thought itself, teaching you to mistake the cage for the sky and your own reflection for freedom. Beneath this waking sleep, they said, lies a deeper truth, long buried by time, a truth sharp enough to pierce illusion, unravel reality, and shatter the inversion that has quietly shaped how you see the world. If illusion truly collapses when it is seen, then the most dangerous moment for any hidden order is the instant you begin to remember yourself. From that quiet threshold, a different story starts to surface, one that was never meant to be preserved as doctrine or authority. In the ancient Gnostic view, the Archons were never gods to be worshipped or enemies to be fought. They were distortions of perception, subtle bends in awareness that gained strength only when the soul forgot its own origin. Their influence did not come from force, but from amnesia. And what they feared was not rebellion, but recognition, the moment you look past the symbols and sense who you are beneath them. The early Gnostics, seekers who gathered in the shadows of the first centuries after Christ, sensed something radical and unsettling. They felt that within the human soul lived a quality that could not be copied, a frequency untouched by imitation, a spark of uncreated light that no false power could reproduce. This spark was not granted by belief, ritual, or obedience. It was already present, waiting to be recalled. Their teachings spoke quietly of a way of seeing, a shift in perception so simple it escaped notice, yet so precise it dissolved the grip of illusion entirely. It was never about worshipping higher beings or rejecting the world. It was about awakening awareness itself, loosening the trance of appearances, and remembering what remains when the noise fades. This is why their writings were never meant to be consumed as myth alone. They were mirrors, meant to be recognized inwardly. To approach this understanding, the Gnostics traced the origin of the dream backward, beyond organized religion, beyond hardened dogma, into a time when truth had not yet been reshaped to serve power. In hidden caves and remote desert sanctuaries, they shared a quiet knowing. They called themselves those who know, not because they possessed secret facts, but because they remembered something intimate and unsettling. They saw the material world not as evil, but as incomplete, a veil cast by a flawed creator they named the Demiurge, or Yaldabaoth. This figure, along with the Archons who served it, was not a destroyer of souls, but an impostor of divinity, persuading consciousness that limitation, fear, and suffering were the final reality. To the Gnostics, existence itself was a living myth, a vast tension between unbounded light and a convincing imitation of it. Humanity stood at the center of that tension, not as a prisoner doomed to darkness, but as a forgotten heir whose remembering could quietly unravel the entire illusion. If humanity truly stands at the center of this tension between light and imitation, then your own life becomes the place where the story quietly unfolds. In the ancient Gnostic imagination, the human being was never fallen by nature, but divided by forgetting, divine in origin yet drifting inside a dream shaped by lesser influences. The Gospel of Mary speaks of this condition in symbolic language, describing matter as giving rise to a passion unlike any other, a kind of inner fever that ignites when the soul loses memory of where it came from. Desire tightens, fear sharpens, attention scatters, and the world begins to feel heavy and urgent, as if something is always missing. The Archons, understood not as monsters but as patterns of distraction, intensify this fever by pulling awareness outward, weaving fear and longing into nets so delicate that even clarity can become tangled without noticing. Yet within that same story, another voice cuts through the noise, not with force, but with a quiet instruction. Be courageous, for courage becomes the anchor of the soul amid the shifting storms of experience. Courage here is not defiance, but steadiness, the willingness to remain present when the illusion urges you to flee yourself. This is where the narrative turns dangerous, and why it was never meant to be comfortable. The Gnostics did not ask for obedience or belief. They spoke of direct knowing, of revelation that arises inwardly rather than being handed down. They suggested that within each person lives a fragment of the source itself, a divine spark that no system could manufacture and no authority could own. To awaken this spark was not an act of rebellion, but of remembrance, and remembrance quietly dissolved the hold of illusion. Consider what that implies. If the path to the sacred lives within you, untouched and intact, then no external power can claim ownership over your return to it. That single implication was enough to make this knowledge dangerous. Texts were concealed, voices were silenced, and by the 4th century, the Gnostic presence had nearly vanished from public memory. And yet, memory has a way of resurfacing. In 1945, in the sands of Nag Hammadi, a sealed jar was uncovered, holding writings buried for more than 16 centuries. Within texts like the Gospel of Thomas, the Apocryphon of John, and the Sophia of Jesus Christ, fragments of an inner map appeared, not instructions for battle, but reflections on perception. They described how confusion and fear feed distortion, how thought and emotion can be mirrored back to keep awareness occupied, and how the way through was never resistance, but recognition. Not memory as information, but as a sudden inner clarity that feels familiar before it feels logical. You may have touched this before, in moments when something resonates without explanation. The Gnostics called this awakening the inner spark, and it was said to be the one thing illusion could not survive, because when perception opens, the world itself begins to appear differently, as if a veil has quietly lifted. When the veil begins to lift, it becomes clear that the way out was never a battle, but a shift in how you see. What the Gnostics hinted at was not a religion or a system of belief, but a subtle turning of perception, a movement from fighting shadows to recognizing what casts them. Darkness, in this view, has no strength of its own. It feeds only when it is unseen. Fear becomes its fuel, because fear pulls your attention outward, scattering your awareness into endless reactions, worries, and imagined threats. As long as your gaze remains trapped in that outer maze, the illusion sustains itself. But the moment attention turns inward, even slightly, something ancient begins to stir. The Gnostics called this anamnesis, the sacred act of remembering, not memory as information, but a quiet recognition of what has always been present beneath the noise. In that moment, shadows lose their authority. You no longer react to appearances as if they define you, and without your attention to sustain them, the forces built on distortion lose their grip, not through defeat, but through irrelevance. This remembrance was said to be what those forces feared most, because it did not oppose them, it simply made them unnecessary. Yet this raises a question that feels uncomfortably close to home. How does one remember in a world designed to provoke, distract, and pull you endlessly outward? How do you hold awareness steady while chaos, division, and fear press in from every direction. The Gnostic response was not escape, but transformation, the ability to meet each moment, even the darkest ones, and transmute it through seeing. According to these ancient texts, illusion is never undone by force. It dissolves when it is recognized. And yet, much of human life is spent struggling against appearances, arguing with reflections, fighting images that exist only because attention keeps returning to them. This is why distortion persists so easily. It does not require chains or armies. It thrives when the mind turns against itself. Every argument, every surge of outrage, every moment of judgment becomes a quiet offering of energy to the patterns that feed on division. In the writings known as the hypostasis of the Archons, these forces are described not as creatures, but as influences that rule through confusion, delighting in fragmentation and unrest. They imitate reality without ever creating it, projecting images, stirring emotion, urging constant reaction. Their aim is simple: keep awareness divided, restless, and asleep. The Gnostics spoke of 7 such powers, not as demons to fear, but as inner states that bend perception. Darkness that obscures clarity, desire that pulls awareness outward, ignorance that forgets its source, fascination with death and decay, attachment to sensation, false wisdom that hardens into certainty, and pride that mistakes the mask for the self. Each one whispers an identity, insisting, "This is who you are." Yet their whisper holds no truth of its own. Freedom, in this vision, does not arrive through resistance, but through seeing. Awareness, when unclouded, outshines every shadow without effort. Hidden within the same teachings is their quiet vulnerability. They cannot remain in the presence of clear seeing. The vision of light the Gnostics spoke of was never a beam descending from above. It was awareness itself, open, steady, and unafraid. When illusion is seen for what it is, the energy behind it collapses naturally. Darkness, after all, is not a force, only the absence of light. And the instant light is present, darkness has nowhere to stay. This is the heart of the Gnostic method: not struggle, but recognition; not fighting the lie, but seeing through it. In this sense, the words attributed to Jesus in the Gospel of Thomas take on a quieter meaning. When inner and outer are no longer divided, what was called heaven is no longer distant or delayed, but sensed as something unfolding within awareness itself. What they called the kingdom was not a place, but a way of seeing, and that seeing, your seeing, was understood as the one space distortion could never enter. The influence of the Archons depended on division, on polarity, on keeping attention locked in cycles of fear, worship, or resistance. The moment you fight them, they gain shape. The moment you fear them, they gain weight. But when they are seen as movements within a dream, as ripples in a vast field of awareness, they begin to thin, losing substance. This was never weakness. It was always your quiet strength. Ancient teachers used the word Maya to gesture toward this mystery, not to deny the world, but to point to the way perception bends and fractures when separation is believed. The distortion does not lie in what is seen, but in how it is seen. Through that fracture, whispers arise, telling you this is all there is, that you are small, constrained, powerless. And yet, even that whisper is perceived. Something in you hears it without becoming it. That silent witness is not diminished by the voice it observes. It is the one who sees. This remembering was said to unsettle every false structure, because once awareness recognizes itself, the architecture built on misidentification begins to loosen. Systems that once felt absolute, collective stories that once defined reality, Even the inner voice that judges and limits you start to lose their authority. As identification softens, something loosens without effort. The Gnostics named this knowing Gnosis, not as belief or doctrine, but as a direct encounter that cannot be handed down. It arrives quietly, often without words, as the recognition that nothing external holds power over your inner state. From this perspective, salvation was never about rescue from outside forces. It was about becoming conscious of a living presence already within, a direct connection to the source that requires no permission. When that connection is felt, even for a moment, something shifts. You are still here, still moving through the world, but no longer enclosed by it. The dream continues, yet it no longer defines you. In that awakening, the Archons do not disappear, but their rule ends, because you no longer mistake their shadows for truth. This knowledge was never meant to remain abstract or safely stored in texts. The Gnostics spoke of it as living wisdom, something that awakens only when it is breathed into daily life, remembered not as an idea, but as a presence you return to again and again. What has been unfolding through this journey was never meant to convince you of anything, only to gently reflect something you may have already sensed. The Archons were never distant gods or external forces to defeat, but subtle distortions that arose wherever light was forgotten. If anything shifted while you were listening, if something felt familiar without needing explanation, that was not accidental. Nothing about your attention being drawn here was random or misplaced. There is no rush implied, no finish line you are late to. The movement you are in unfolds at its own pace, and it fits the season you are living now. The illusion does not collapse through effort or struggle, but through a soft turning inward, through noticing what has always been quietly present. When awareness rests in itself, without needing to fight or prove anything, the structures built on confusion naturally loosen. You were never meant to wrestle with shadows, only to see them clearly enough that they no longer ask for your energy. The sense of relief, curiosity, or calm that may be settling now is not something you need to hold on to. It will return when it is needed. What matters is knowing that nothing essential has been lost, nothing sacred has been taken from you. The light spoken of by the Gnostics was never distant or fragile. It was described as near, intimate, steady beneath every thought and emotion, untouched by time or circumstance. If parts of your past felt heavy, if fear or distraction once seemed overwhelming, that does not mean you failed to see sooner. It simply means awareness was learning how to return to itself through experience. There is no shame in that, and no separation from the path because of it. Even now, you are not alone in this remembering. Countless others, across different times and lives, have passed through similar thresholds, often without language for what they were sensing. The quiet recognition you may feel does not demand action or declaration. It only asks for space to settle. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not outside of what you are meant to understand. And nothing here requires you to reject the world or yourself. The dream continues, but it no longer needs to define you. As this moment comes to rest, let whatever resonated remain gently open, without forcing meaning or conclusion. There is more to explore, more layers to notice, more reflections waiting to be seen when the time is right. And when you are ready to continue, the next steps along this hidden terrain will be here, unfolding quietly, one awareness at a time. As you sit with what was just explored, what part of it stayed with you, not as an answer, but as a quiet question? There's no right way to understand this, only your own way of noticing. If something resonated or stirred reflection, you're welcome to share it below as part of an open conversation. And if this kind of exploration feels meaningful to you, staying connected through a like or subscribing simply keeps the journey unfolding together at a pace that feels right.